All right, let's look at another media inaccuracy recently related to a retirement crisis, oh no, by NBC Media. If you're a non-American, this won't apply to you, but this is a good video for those of you who are non-Americans and want to see how stupid Americans are. This is a great one because Americans are incredibly dumb, and this is good evidence of it. Okay, so there's a retirement crisis, right? The great 401k experiment has failed for many Americans. When I worked for the bank and collected data, I found that about a third of Americans actually did really well with their retirement and saving for retirement. The other 2/3, not so much. But we'll talk about some solutions for why that is. So, Kelly Holland writes this article, and all it is whining, petulant, complaining about how Americans don't have enough money. I'm going to highlight this right here, pause the video, look at it. I'm going to highlight this in a second on one of the slides, and then we're going to go down to here. Failure of choice. I'm going to try to get in touch with the individual who is the father of 401ks, because this individual, he makes actually a good point. They have too many choices, and I agree with that. And I'll get into that in a second about ways to make 401ks a little better or to improve them for people who don't have as much knowledge. Okay, but first let's look at the median 401k balance according to this article. I happen to know this is inaccurate data, but this article is claiming that the overall median 401k balance is $18,433. The answer, by the way, is much more than that. According to the group, the group aged 55 to 64 is $76,381. That's the median balance. Okay. Trying to think really fast. I know that median household wealth for people in this age group, I believe, is $165,000. Second. Hold on. United States, where's that? According to the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve, if there's one thing they do right, they collect better data than these people do, for show. Okay, let's look at 55 to 64. What is the median wealth? One moment, median. $165,000 right on the money, I think. 165, yeah. So 165,000. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so what that means is that actually is a pretty good figure if they have 76,381 in there, if that's the median 401k balance. It's actually not bad. What that means is 50% of people have more, 50% of people have less. $165,000 is their median wealth. That includes, of course, home values from what I remember. So that's good. That's actually not bad. For all the whining and complaining, that's actually not bad. Okay, so let's look at this. What's wrong with this? By the way, Fidelity has also done studies, and one of the things they've broken down their studies, way more accurate, by the way, because of course they're Fidelity. And one of the things they've looked at is that when they look at 401ks, and they look at people who have 401ks and Roth IRAs or traditional IRAs or SEP IRAs, and those people have even more. So if you exclude Americans' low 401k balances, I'm using their term low here, they have other IRAs, health savings accounts. Americans will have those. Excluding all of the above, Americans still have access to Social Security. And I forgot to put this, they also have access to their home, right? You can do, I mean, if push comes to shove, you can do a reverse mortgage on your home. I'm not saying it's a great idea, but it is an option if push comes to shove. The rest of the world doesn't have access to any of this. Or not all the rest of the world, but a lot of people in the world don't even have access to this. That's what I mean. One half world problems. Boo-hoo. Americans have it so hard. Oh my gosh, they have to be responsible. This country just trips me up sometimes. So what is the real agenda of this article? And it comes out in this quote. That's why I highlighted it. In America, when we had disability and defined benefit plans, you actually had an equality of retirement period. Now the rich can retire and workers have to work until they die. I want to point this out, and this is very important. Share this with anyone that you ever talk to. Anytime someone tries to say the rich versus the poor, or the rich versus the workers, they're manipulating you. Notice what this is. This is behind the scenes class warfare. This person, Teresa, is manipulating you. They're trying to get you jealous. If I can get you envious, I control you. I want to get you into a hot, bothered, emotional mess because now I'm in control of you. That's exactly what Teresa's doing, right? Problem is, she is assuming that her readers are incredibly stupid and don't see right through what she's doing. So what does she propose? Who has proposed eliminating the tax breaks for 401ks, of course, and using the money saved to create government-run retirement plans. Oh man. Translation: she wants to take your money, put herself and other bureaucrats in charge of it, and of course, get a good salary doing it. Ah, that's what they want. They want to take your money. We're going to be in charge of your 401k. And don't worry, we'll do it for you and you'll have a great retirement account. Hold that thought. For those of you who think that you're going to retire so well thanks to the government, this is the national debt of the United States. The historical debt outstanding, billions of US dollars. Let's just give the government a little bit of a break and only look at the last 20 years. Okay? As you can see, in the last 20 years, the government has never lowered the debt year over year. It's amazing. I mean, I'm looking at this figure and I'm like, okay, so 46, 49, 52, 54, 55, 56, 56, ooh, got close, but no cookie. 58, 62, 67, 73, 79, 85, 90, now we really start making leaps, 10, 0, 11, 9, holy heck, I mean, it's just like blam, blam, blam. Higher, 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 higher. You want to put an institution who for 20 years has not been able to pay down or pay into the national debt, just 1 year, just 1 out of 20. You want to put them in charge of your 401k. Here's the deal, even some of the most irresponsible, dumb Americans who are watching this video right now, and yes, for those of you who are non-Americans, Americans are stupid. They are really, really stupid. But even as dumb as you are, even as stupid as you are as an American, you have still, more than likely, paid your debt more responsibly than the government has. I cannot think of a more incompetent institution than the U.S. government. I mean, even if I look at Europe, which is really embarrassing, they make the U.S. government look irresponsible. And that is truly amazing. Even the Japanese make Americans look irresponsible. And they have Abenomics. You want to trust these people to run your retirement accounts? Wow. So why is the American media retarded? And I blast articles like this. Because they don't have brains. I mean, stop and think about the unintended consequences of this. You don't have to be a genius to think about this. Wait a minute. Let's ask the obvious question, right? Okay, so if we get rid of 401ks, this is what happens when Obama floats his let's tax 401ks idea. What is the unintended consequence of that? What have you just communicated to everybody? Right? Well, the environment, the financial environment is changing. What will Americans be thinking? Well, our 401ks, if they're not going to be honored, what else won't be honored? Also, reading an article like this, I'd just like to point out, what do you think Americans are going to do? Or do you think they're going to save now after reading that article? They're going to be like, see, that's why I don't put money into a 401k, because they're going to be taken away anyway. I know all these idiots that read Zero Hedge, and it's not that Zero Hedge is for stupid people to read. Zero Hedge tries to assert constantly that the government's going to confiscate 401ks and what is it, buy government bonds or something like that. One of their writers does. And these people will read that and say, see, that's why I don't invest in a 401k. You see how much damage that does by having articles like this? Because what you do is you basically are saying, see, the government should do those things. It shouldn't, right? Because at the end of the day, if what Teresa is saying is true, and if we should do this in her mind, then I agree with people who say, you know what, buy gold and flip the government the bird. Because it's not your money, Teresa. You didn't save that. And you're being disingenuous. And you know you are. And you're just trying to get people jealous so that you can control them. Nice try, but you failed. Okay? A better idea would be to honor your word. This only leads to more instability when you... this only leads to more instability when you actually do hurt everyone in the long run, when people start to ask, well, what else are you going to dishonor? Health savings plans, 401ks, educational savings accounts. I mean, dear Lord. Can you guys just make up your mind? This, by the way, is the reason why I don't believe in abolishing Social Security. All these conservatives and libertarians want it gone. I'm like, you'd create a mess if you did that. You're not honoring things. It creates chaos. Anytime you change rules, you create more chaos because it inevitably leads to the question, what else is going to change? People begin to feel the system is collapsing. Well, it's not going to be there tomorrow. So what do? You will never have a system of integrity with constant change. Let me put it in this analogy first, because Americans are really stupid. They only understand things when it comes to boyfriend and girlfriend relationships. So again, if you're a foreigner, I know, I have to get really dumb for these Americans. If your partner cheats on you, and they're like, I'm sorry, I felt so different today, I just needed to cheat, okay? I promise I won't do it again. And then they do it again. At what point do you trust that person? They keep betraying you, but at what point do you trust them? I mean, for me, it's like, first time they failed, it's over. Right? That's the point. Maybe the government needs to learn how to stop spending so much money. Right? I mean, there's all kinds of things. Maybe they need to learn how to actually save. Look, you irresponsible Americans have at least paid your debt one in 20 years. They haven't even done that. It's amazing. All right. So let's actually talk about real solutions that the morons at NBC can't figure out. First of all, when you reward bad behavior, what happens? You get more of it. Even as dumb as Americans are, the parents of Americans do understand, the American parents I should say, do understand that if you reward kids bad behavior, guess what happens? You actually get more of it. Most of them will tell you that. There are a few of them that don't know that. Right? What happens when you give a kid a cookie after he punches you in the stomach? Well, he's going to do it again. Right? It's dumb. Bailing out people who borrow only encourages borrowing. Bailing out people who are underwater on their mortgage only makes more people take on bigger homes they can't afford. I can get a bailout. What happens when people read these stories? They're like, hey, I could get a bailout too. Right? What happens if we heard a story, and I'll use myself as an example to pick on myself, where a person went underwater on their home and the government didn't bail them out and they had to suffer 5 years to pay off their mortgage or just to get it back to normal balance. Man, we would be like, boy, that couple got screwed. But that story would affect our behavior. When I was, I think my last year of college, there was a 60 Minutes program. 60 Minutes was stupid as well. They were like, oh, this poor couple, they can't retire and blah, blah, blah. And this guy had been a truck driver for like, I don't know, 30 years. And his wife had worked for like 15 years. And I remember while I was watching it, I was taking all these notes. Such a responsible student in a retarded way. But I was taking all these notes like, well, where were they saving each year? They weren't. I mean, 60 Minutes never pointed out, well, you were living an unsustainable lifestyle. You were clearly borrowing money. You were consuming more than you made in terms of income. Like, why didn't you save? But they never asked this question. They spent this whole time talking about how they're so poor. I mean, like, he's going to have to work at 60. Oh, God forbid you have to have a job at 60. You know, people throughout history didn't even live to 50 or 40. Now we're living to 60 and we're complaining about working. Go figure. But they didn't even save. And 60 Minutes never even stopped to ask, why didn't you just at least save 10% of your income a year? Over 30 years, that adds up. No, they just assumed that all of the stuff, all of the items all over their house they needed, even though most of them were what we would call luxury goods. A nice couch, you don't need a nice couch. But I would like to have one. Well, good, then work another job and get one. When you see stories like that, what happens? Changes your behavior, doesn't it? And so I realized, as stupid as I was as a college student, I need to save for my retirement. These people didn't save. That's why they ended up in their mess. What do you think I learned? Save! See, that's what happens. People respond to the stories. Remove the income cap on Social Security. Look, a self-employed business owner, this is going to shock some of y'all, who makes $1 billion a year should pay $124 million in Social Security, okay? Which is 12.4%. They should not be paying $14K. Now I know some of you are like, huh? What? They only pay $14K? Yes. The way Social Security works is basically you only pay taxes on the first $120,000, I believe, that you make. So if you make $1 billion, you only pay $14K in Social Security. What? Now I know this is going to affect me, and you're going to be like, well, Matt, you're going to have to pay more money in taxes to Social Security. It will, and oh well. That's the way Social Security works. There should never be some type of income cap on it. I don't know where this came from or why. It's a bad idea. Remove it. Yes, that would affect rich people more, right? we're going to have to pay a lot more money. Oh well. Social Security is a system. It is the backup system for retirement. Even if you're irresponsible and stupid, like most Americans are, you still at least can fall back on Social Security. Again, it's much better if you take responsibility in your life. I mean, things get much easier when you take control of your life. All right, how about 401k plans? So the founder of 401k plans, and I'll reach out and try to get in touch with them. I agree, the complexity. I do. I also agree, HR directors are some of the dumbest people you will ever meet. I don't know how they are in other countries, but in America, they know very little about things. I don't know why the people who are in charge of the 401k plans shouldn't be able to have a financial interest, for one, but aren't able to sit down and talk with families about, conservative and risky allocations of assets. Okay, the first thing is there should be plans, 401k plans with a simpler approach for the unadvanced investor. And what I mean by that is people like myself, I can identify a good mutual fund in about 2 minutes. Okay, most people can't. And most people, they hear the thing, I just want to buy index funds. Good. Okay. So have a couple of basic index funds and then say a conservative allocation would be 30% here to 30% here, 30%, or a risk-taking allocation would be this, and show them, these graphs and let people decide what they want to do. Okay. One of the things that, I talk about in my financial course for students is how to determine what type of an investor you are in terms of the risk-taking scale. Well, HR directors could learn that skill, and they could sit there and put that in front of their employees, and that would really help people out. Okay? All right. And then the other thing is, for plans like these that have a simple approach, there should be plans, the same plan should have a complex approach as well. Again, there are investors like myself who like looking through the mutual funds and saying, okay, that one's good, and that one's good. For instance, one of my 401k plans, well, two of them actually, so one of them has like 30 choices, and the other one has, I think, 18 choices. Of the one that has 18 choices, there's only 2 good choices. Okay, I actually went through it all. Again, I can identify a good mutual fund from a mile away. Other plan has 3 good choices out of, what was it, 20? Yeah, 20. It's just all there is to it, right? And yeah, that's kind of how it works. The bottom line is, keep it simple for the simple people who don't want to get too deep into it, all right? And let them pick their allocation accordingly and go with that. Now, I say here the government can do a match for these plans like an additional 2%, provided that the employer doesn't cut back on it. So as long as they're, let's say, matching 6%, the government can come in and say, okay, and we'll match 2% as well. Now, some people, but then the government's going to spend money. Hold that thought. What is GDP, according to Keynesians? You're like, well, it's C plus I plus G plus net exports. It is. And what is I in that equation? It's investment. Okay. So if the government matches 2%, first of all, that helps the workers, right? These matches really help the workers. I do wish a little bit that the government would incentivize employers to match more. I do wish. But they won't. But the government could always match 2% themselves, right? For plans that offer a simple approach. And that would benefit employers in a way, and that would benefit those employees, okay? So there are solutions to this problem that don't require changing everything. Notice how there's still 401ks in my solution. I didn't change everything. I just said, well, the government may have a match. Notice how I'm not even getting rid of the complexity. I'm just saying there's a simple approach for investors who think it's too complex. I'm just adding a different approach, right? But I'm not taking anything away. I'm not robbing anybody's rights. Notice how now you will probably say the income cap on Social Security, that should have never been there to begin with. Okay, so this one, and nobody in their right mind, including myself, who this would apply to, thinks that that's fair. I don't even think Bill Gates thinks this is fair. Okay, and then finally, reward bad behavior. I mean, if you reward bad behavior, you're going to get more of it. I think most people with a brain, which granted are mostly non-Americans, understand, yeah, you're going to keep getting irrational behavior if you keep rewarding that, right? It's just like I learned from that 60-minute video of the people who didn't save. You watch what people do, you see the mistakes they made, and you're like, yeah, you just were spending money out of it. And there is no reason to be spending that much money. And by the way, their house is full of items that they did not need. I am not being unfair when I see someone with a big screen TV, or when I see people with pictures all over their house, or a fancy couch, and it's like, that stuff is luxury items. You don't need that, okay? So, as you can see, this is responsible. These are solutions that don't change the whole system and don't disrupt things. What NBC produced is very irresponsible journalism. It's terrible journalism. It's very biased journalism. It has a very manipulative agenda. But it's irresponsible journalism because at the end of the day, those aren't solutions. All that's going to do is create more chaos. If you want your system to improve, you have to learn to work within the rules you've already established. And as you can see, there's plenty of room to work.